Over the past few years, phones have got bigger. But are they too big? Hi guys, it is Ryan Thomas here, your boy Meek, and this is my late but kind of weird review of the iRulu Victory 3. So first off is the size. That's the one thing that hits you in the face first. And I think that a lot of people will be scared to use this phone. I've taken it to college. Actually, my friend Harry has lent me this phone, and it's a good phone. But like I said, the size is pretty huge. It's a 6.5 inch display, only 720p, but we'll get into that in a little minute and why that doesn't matter. But genuinely is a huge phone, and it's a head turner. And I'm not going to say it's hard to handle because with my hands, they're about average to small size hands. It's quite easy to manage because it's got a soft touch back and it's got slightly plasticky but somewhat grippy rails on the sides. From what I can tell, there isn't any metal in the construction. If there is, it would be in the camera bump, which there is. So the camera does protrude a little bit along with the flash. And from there, you can kind of get a grip, literally, play on words there. It's a very soft touch back. And if you guys don't know what soft touch is, the BitPhoenix Prodigy case from, like I said, BitPhoenix does have that. The rails of my Nexus 4 they have a soft touch finish as well, and it essentially is it feels a bit like rubber, but it is plastic and it's just coated in this stuff that makes it a lot grippier and easier to hold, which is quite essential when you've got a phone that's 6.5 inches. Okay, so let's move on to the camera. The camera's pretty bad. It's actually a 13 megapixel shooter, but it's not. That's what it's rated at, but I don't believe that these are 13 megapixel photos. I will show you these photos. Okay, the lighting isn't great, but I still don't think that these are 13 megapixel. It's also rated at 1080p at 30 fps, but from what I can tell, it does about 15 fps, and I'm not sure if that's 1080p. So the camera is really somewhere that they've skimped, and it's not good, and I don't think that they should remarket this. You know, they could just take the camera out. It's good that it's got a camera, but these lower end phones, you do see the cameras are skimped on. Now the front facing camera, which is the one you're going to be looking into for Skype and things like this, video chat, and even taking selfies, is a 5 megapixel shooter. It lives more up to its name than its back facing brother. It feels a bit more like a 5 megapixel than the rear one feels like a 13. It resembles its actual specification, but again, not amazing. Low light is not very good. It actually has smoother frame rate on the front camera than it is on the rear. And overall, I think the front sensor is probably better than the rear one, which is a weird one. No slow-mo on this and no 4K, even though apparently it is a 13 megapixel sensor. And yeah, genuinely the cameras aren't very good. Genuine, bottom of my heart, I can't recommend the cameras. But overall, you know, at least it's got a pair of cameras. Okay, so let's get on to, I think, the hardware design. On the top, we've got a 3.5mm headphone jack, and what I can only assume as being an IR blaster or IR sensor because there's a little kind of dip. Next is on the bottom, we have to the bottom right, we have a micro USB standardized connector. It's what you use to charge most Android phones nowadays. And we do also have a little microphone down there that will be for your phone calls. And then on the left side, we have nothing. And on the right side, we have two very decently, I'm not going to say well, decently placed buttons. We have a volume rocker that is not, it's kind of more like one button than two separate buttons, so it's a rocker. And then we also have the power button. Now I'm glad they're both on the same side of the device because it means if you kind of squeeze your phone to get those buttons, it means you say this is the power button and here is the volume button. If you press the power button, you're more likely to activate the volume button as well. So it's good to have them both on the same side, although I think they're a little bit too high up on the phone, being that it's a larger phone. I think they should be placed maybe a bit further down. If you've got large hands, it's going to be absolutely fine, but you know, my medium to small sized mitts are not very you have to reach up the phone a lot to grab it to activate the power and volume especially. Next, let's move on to the power. Now this is actually an ARM-based A53, I believe, from Qualcomm. It's a Snapdragon. It's actually a quad-core. It's actually 1.2 gigahertz. It's got 2 gigabytes of RAM, which makes multitasking pretty much a breeze. I mean, newer phones, the new P9 from Huawei, actually has 6 gigabytes. No, 2 gigabytes is obviously just fine. It actually doubles my iPhone's RAM. And most iPhones are dual-core now, so there we go. And it does well. It's 2 gigabytes of RAM is enough. The one that I have actually has a 16 gigabyte of onboard storage. It has 16 gigabytes of onboard storage. This is built into the phone, but you can expand that. Now on their website it does say you can only go up to 32 gigabytes of micro SD card storage, but we've seen micro SD cards go up to 1 terabyte now, so I'm not sure if that's kind of a limitation of the phone, or maybe they just didn't think to add that to their brief or to their sheets, to their notes. But yeah, no, it's definitely a good set of specs for the phone. I mean, this phone does cost £120, guys, and we'll get into that a little bit later in the video. I think that overall it's a great phone for the money, because the screen, like I said, and I said I'd get into this later on in the video, it's a 720p screen, but that means that there is no scaling because it's such a large screen but with a small resolution. So the buttons, like the onboard buttons, the keyboard, things like this, they appear bigger on the screen. It's almost like taking a small phone and literally just enlarging it. With other large phones, you take small phones, you enlarge them, but then you also keep the icons the same size to add more screen real estate, and that's what enables you to do multi windows on one screen or something like that. But this is one, and I think I like it like this. This is a phone that I think would appeal to a lot of older people or people just getting into smartphones, because it's a nice big thing to see. It's a nice bright screen. You've got great colours, it being an IPS display, and you've got great size buttons, and it costs £120, which is perfect because it's a really, really cheap phone, but it's made well and it lasts a long time. Let's get on to the battery life. It's 3,000 milliamp hour battery, and because it's a removable battery, which means you can just get more if you wanted and use those. I mean, that's the fastest kind of charging I can think of, and it lasts pretty much a whole day. My friend Callum actually borrowed this off me, and I'm borrowing it off Harry, to play games pretty much the whole day on it. We had an hour of game time, and it's still probably on about 35%. Let me just check. It is, and I'm going to do this live. I know it's not professional, but there we go, 44%. An hour of game time. It's been used fairly heavily throughout the day, and I genuinely think that it's a great product. Now, this review, I'm sorry for the quality of this review. I just want to wrap up with saying that the iRulu V3 is a great buy. I would recommend it. I would definitely recommend it. Brand new, £120. It's an absolute steal for what you're getting. It's a head turner. You could use this for, an external monitor for your camera if you wanted to, or you could use it as a phone, or you could just use it as whatever you want. It's a really good kind of multi-purpose. It's almost like a tablet, but not quite the size of a tablet. It's got thin bezels, and it feels more like a phone. But let me just wrap this up with this review, and this is less of the review itself. And I just want to say that recently I've been having some bad luck with technology. Throughout this video, you might have seen I'm not kind of my most amazing at. It's not, I'm not in my optimum mood at the moment, and I'm really glad I got to review this phone because it's something new and it's something big and different, and it's just something more fun. And at this moment in time, I'm not having all that much fun. So I do love my review and I do love making videos. That's kind of what keeps me going, to be honest. But yeah.